On Thursday, September 28, 2023, 3801 and 6029 from Transport Heritage New South Wales are seen passing through Campsie, making their way to Everleigh and Sydney, ready to take part in the annual Transport Heritage Expo for the October Labor Day long weekend. The event took place between Saturday, September 30th to Monday, October 2nd, 2023. This year, 6029, the Garrett, and 3526, the Naughty Nanny, are providing train rides from Sydney to Hurstville and back. The first train of the day is hauled by 3526, the Naughty Nanny, who is passing through Carlton with Chumrail's newly restored diesel locomotive 42105 in assistance, with its passengers to Hurstville and back. The reason 3526 and its former classmates were called Naughty Nanny because the 35s were originally called the NN class until they were renumbered as the 35s during the New South Wales Government Railways renumbering scheme in 1924. 42105 now leads the train back to Sydney. The next train passing us, this time at Cogra, is 6029 the Garrett, with 4501 assisting its train. After its stop at Hurstville, 4501 now leads the train back to Sydney. We now move to Banksia to see 3526 passing by with its second train to Hurstville. The livery 42105 is the Northern River Railroad's rainbow livery. 42105 is now seen passing through Banksia Station heading back to Sydney. Meanwhile, a grain train passes through. Next, 6029 passes through. Now 4501 passes through on the return to Sydney. At Arncliffe, 3526 passes by with its third train to Hurstville. Meanwhile, a Tangara set can be seen collecting its commuters for the eastern suburbs.
The next train to arrive on platform 2 does not stop at this platform. Please stand behind the yellow line. Please stand clear.
(42-105) now leads the train back to Sydney once again. As we wait for 6029, we see more commuter trains running by. Here an empty H set, otherwise known as an Oscar set, outer suburban car, passes through, likely heading for the maintenance centre in Mortdale, while another Tangara set heads for the eastern suburbs. We now see 6029 passing through with its third train. While we wait for 6029 and 4501 on their return journey, a Pacific National container train passes through with 481 class diesels hauling it. .4501 now leads the train once again to Sydney. To end the Saturday event, 3526 is now climbing through Allawah with its last train for the day to Hurstville. .42105 now leads the train back to Sydney.
For your safety, please take extreme care. Surfaces may be slippery when wet. The train on platform 1 does not stop at this platform. Please stand behind the yellow line. Please stand clear.
Next, 6029 passes by with its last train for the day to Hurstville.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Platform 2 does not stop at this platform. Please stand behind the...
4501 now leads the train back to Sydney, ending the Saturday event. A new day and a new month. It's the second day of the Expo on Sunday, October 1st, 2023, and we now move to Sydney Central Station to see the hubbub. Despite a total fire ban being placed in New South Wales due to the 36-degree heat, steam trains were given the exception, and here we see 3526 awaiting to depart with its first train to Hurstville. Meanwhile, one of the engines on display is 4001, New South Wales' first diesel locomotive and the leader of the 40 class fleet. The engine was built by the Montreal Locomotive Works in Canada in 1951. Its claim to fame goes back to 1954, when it and classmate 4002 hauled the late Queen Elizabeth II's and the late Prince Philip's royal train on their first ever Australian visit. 4002 and third classmate 4003 are both preserved in Western Australia. Meanwhile, CPH Rail Motor 13N7, who we last saw in Maitland during Steamfest, are providing shuttle rides on the Botany Goods Line, which runs past Sydney's International Airport. The rail motor is from the Rail Motor Society in Paterson. The rail motor makes its way to the Botany line, while 3526 departs with its first train to Hurstville. Later on, 4501 pulls in with 6029, ready for its first train to Hurstville. Meanwhile, Historic Electric Traction's F1 Red Rattler departs Sydney with its first lot of passengers to East Hills in the Canterbury Bankstown area. We hop on board the train, and now let us take a ride in style to Hurstville. (42.105) can be seen at Arncliffe heading back to Sydney from Hurstville with 35.26. 4501 now departs Hurstville for Sydney. As we wait for the all clear at Banksia, another wheat train passes through, hauled by two 81s and three 82s from Pacific National. We're back at Central Station, and before we see 3526 heading off on its second run, we take a look at the display around the station. These carriages were once part of the glamorous Southern Aurora that ran between Sydney, New South Wales to Melbourne, Victoria from 1962 to 1986. During the Expo, these carriages were used to offer book ticket holders a refreshment experience as it did back in its heyday. 3642 in its black livery was on display as well, offering patrons free cab visits. Behind 3642 are the CBC HX carriages, better known as the Pullman set. The New South Wales Railways had ordered 8 of these carriages from the Pullman Palace Company in 1890 and are constructed entirely from timber. They were fitted with pressed metal ceilings, clerestory roofs, crown lights and polished nickel and brass fittings. With their ornate stylings, they would come to be used on services to the Queensland and Victorian borders, key routes on the New South Wales Government Railway in the turn of the century. The Pullman's success gave the rise to a series of locally built carriages based on their design. HX 1006 entered service in 1899, whilst the CBC cars entered service in 1902. Their prominent service was the Northern Commercial Limited in 1936. It will later be known as the Newcastle Flyer. They would be later replaced by the N-type carriages, whom are also preserved at the New South Wales Rail Museum in Thelmere, and the Pullman set will be seen on less high-profile services. Their most well-known service would be the Vintage Train, a public relation and education initiative by the New South Wales Government Railway between 1960 to 1974. The train travels to all corners of New South Wales for the benefit and enjoyment of local communities. This was carried on by the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum, now Transport Heritage New South Wales. They were used to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Newcastle Flyer in 2004, the 150th anniversary of New South Wales Railways in 2005, and the 150th anniversary of the Great Northern Railway from Newcastle to Maitland in 2007. These carriages were also used in films, including the Angelina Jolie film Unbroken from 2013. 01 group. 4501 awaits its departure with 6029, while 3801 and 4201 are on display. Like 3642, 3801 offers visitors of the Expo free cab visits, and there was more of a line for the 38 than the 36. (42.105) was part of the 421 class fleet. It was built by Klein Engineering at Granville in Sydney in 1966 for the New South Wales Government Railway until it was withdrawn from government service in 1990 and was then transferred along with 3 other members of its class in private ownership by Northern Rivers Railroad in 1996. Northern Rivers Railroad was established intentionally as a tourist train taking passengers from Casino to Murwillumbah in 1990. By 1997 they began to pull cement and fly ash trains from Grafton to Casino and Murwillumbah under subcontract to Freight Corp, which would later be dissolved in January 2002. They started tourist operations in 1999, which ran between Murwillumbah to Lismore and other destinations, including Brisbane and Queensland. The service was called Ritz Rail. By 2002, QR had purchased Northern River Railroad, including the preserved classmates of the 421s, and renamed it as Interrail. 42105 was later withdrawn in 2013, and 4 years later, it, along with 42103, were purchased by Chumrail. 3526 now heads off on its second run to Hurstville. Later on, F1, seen from the Pullman set, departs Sydney for East Hills once again. On the concourse, historic uniforms for tram, bus drivers, stewardesses and authority enginemen are on display. Alongside is a photographic exhibition called Tracks Through Time. The photographs are from the archives of the New South Wales Division of the Australian Railway Historical Society. The Society, who are celebrating their 90th anniversary in 2023, was established in 1933 as the Railway Circle. After that, they were called the Australasian Railway and Locomotive Historical Society. The Society will later be called what they are today in 1952. Other divisions were later established in other states and the Australian Capital Territory. However, the ACT division was liquidated in 2016 after being $700,000 in debt after their commercial division, SB Railroad Service, which hauls scrap metal from Fiswick to Port Botany, had collapsed. The commercial division was established to subsidise their popular but expensive heritage train trips. The Victorian division wound up its activities after civil claims were made against them by those who were children who were abused by volunteers. Our thoughts go out to the victims of abuse. If you're suffering from abuse, help is available 24 hours a day at 1-800-737-732. Both the Canberra Railway Museum in the ACT and the Newport Railway Museum in the suburb of Newport in Melbourne, Victoria, are now run by organisations separate from the ARHS. The New South Wales division is located in Alexandria and have a collection of railway history in their archives for research purposes. Their collection from private and public railways is the largest in Australia. Later, 6029 now departs with its second train to Hurstville. As 6029 heads off, we end the second day with a look at the iconic clock tower standing tall and once again doing tours for people during the expo. October 1st is also the day the clocks move forward in New South Wales for daylight savings, and despite it being over a century old, some modernity is added to it, such as the clock changing automatically for daylight savings instead of moving forward by hand. It's the last day of the expo on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, and before we head to Sydney once again, F1 the Red Rattler is seen passing through Kingsgrove heading for Central after taking passengers to East Hills. We move to Central and see 6029 leaving on one of its shuttle trains to Hurstville. We move away from the trains now, and we see vintage buses from the Sydney Bus Museum providing free rides for patrons. Our bus we'll be riding on is RM1708 from London, England. The buses will take patrons on a 20-minute ride around Sydney's Central Business District, the CBD for short. RM1708 was delivered to London Transport in 1963 and retired from service in 1988. It was then sold to a private owner going by Mr. Collins in Western Australia and was used as a school bus at his hometown in Dinella, and was then sold to the Historic Commercial Vehicle Association in 1998 and was transferred by ship to Sydney to be put on display at the Sydney Bus Museum, which was located at its old base in Tempe. The museum is now located in Leichhardt since 2016. To conclude the expo, we now moved to Sydney Harbour later in the day and saw steam tugboat Waratah from Sydney Heritage Fleet. It was launched at Cockatoo Island in 1902 and was originally named Borunda. Its main purpose was towing barges and dredges between various ports around New South Wales' coastline. It was primarily based at Newcastle in the Hunter region, but often served Sydney Harbour on infrastructure projects for the Public Works Department and as a relief pilot steamer. .3801, 3526 and 6029 had transferred themselves back to Thelmere later in the day, and 3642, the display carriages and the diesels went back to Thelmere on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023.